Hello everyone, I hope you can hear me from your part of the country. My name is Sophie Hardwick and I'm facilitating today's session, Apprenticemakers Live. I hope everyone's settled and ready to go. We can get started, I think. So today's webinar is scheduled to last 1 hour, and firstly I'm going to provide a short introduction to Apprenticemakers, and then I'll hand over to our speakers. I'm just going to see if our speakers are on the line. Here we go. Hi Jill. Hi Andy.
Hi Sophie. Hi Sophie.
Hello, hello. Before we started, you two are definitely on the line, but I didn't have Dan at that point. Have we got Dan now?
Yeah, I think I'm connected now. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh,
brilliant.
Fantastic.
We've got a full house. That's fantastic. Okay, so I'd like to welcome everyone along. So once I've given an overview on Apprenticemakers, I'll hand over to Jill Campbell from JWP Careers. Is that how I say it, Jill?
Yeah, that's right, Sophie.
That's right. And Jill will be talking about her own experience as an apprentice, having gone from apprentice to partner in the business, and about her business's apprenticeship journey as a whole. Then I'll be handing over to Dan, and he'll give us a brief overview of how students and young people are feeling about apprenticeships at the moment, in that you work quite a lot with the people that are coming into apprentices, don't you, Dan?
That's correct, yeah. So the team that I work in is the first point of contact really for prospective students. So that would
We're going to get your insights into how they're feeling about the world of work at the moment. So that's going to be really useful, I think. And then Andy is going to give us an overview about how apprenticeships work for businesses. And so you've got some slides and some info that's going to help people get started with that. Is that right, Andy?
That's absolutely correct. Yeah, we can give it some examples, hopefully dispel a few myths, and we'll try and do it jargon-free as well.
Okay, we'll try our best. Okay, great. So after that, there'll be an opportunity for questions for all of our speakers, and if you've got any questions, just pop them into the question box in the panel that you've got in your webinar tool, and we'll try and incorporate those into the presentation if there's a logical point in which to do it. If not, we'll save them until the end. And so, as I said, I'm Sophie Hardwick, and I run Apprenticemakers. And before we get going, I'll just give a quick overview about how it's sort of the background to Apprenticemakers and why we run these webinars. So that everyone can get into the swing of things, I thought it might be useful for us just to set up a quick poll to find out who we've got on the line and what their background is. So I'm going to throw this poll out to the audience to find out a little bit about you and your apprenticeship activities. So I'm asking the question, have you set up an apprenticeship program in your business? And all you need to do is click on the relevant answer for you. This is just to check everyone's awake. And it also gives our speakers an idea of who we've got out there. See, from where I'm sat, I can see the answers starting to come in, so it's quite interesting. Any more for any more? Okay, I'm going to close that poll and publish the results, share the results. Can you see that, speakers?
Yep, I can
see that. Where I am, but hopefully you get an idea of who we've got on the line. So it seems that roughly half the audience are considering apprenticeships at the moment. Okay. And just to help this one along, we've got another one here, which is asking you what you consider to be your biggest hurdle in the apprenticeships process. So is it management time, finding the right candidate, cost to employ, finding the right training organisation, or cost to employ and sourcing the funding? So it's quite useful, because if we find out what people are thinking about and their rough kind of areas of consideration, we can try and respond to these in the actual presentations itself. Got a couple of answers in. Okay, this is an interesting one. So these are the very quick responses from the floor there. And having now that I know what Jill is going to be covering, it's going to be quite interesting to get your take on the management time element, Jill.
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, everyone. That's really interesting. So with that in mind, I'll just give a quick overview on Apprenticemakers, and I'll let the speakers dwell on those answers in preparation for their presentations as they come in later on in the webinar. So just to give a quick background on Apprenticemakers, how did it come about? Well, about 3 years ago, the Holt Review was written for the government by a small business owner called Jason Holt, who runs a jewellery business in London. And he identified that many businesses that run apprenticeships programs are really keen to pass on their apprenticeships experience to others. Because that's great news, because small businesses often trust the opinion and experience of other small businesses more than any other source. So it was recommended in that report, which was called the Holt Review, and just a screenshot of it there you can see, that peer-to-peer mentoring could be a great way for businesses to gain confidence and knowledge and start apprenticeship programs in their own business. So that led to ourselves, the Small Firms Enterprise Development Initiative, or SFEDI as it's known for short, getting involved, as we've run a number of nationwide enterprise mentoring initiatives. So we work with Jason Holt and the National Apprenticeship Service to create this online peer-to-peer connection tool, and therefore Apprenticemakers was born. So what does it actually look like today? Well, the whole objective of Apprenticemakers is to create a place where that peer-to-peer support could come to life, really, and businesses could connect and meet in a community. Its core activity is an online community which enables businesses to make connections with each other and to ask questions in a wider forum. So if you're considering an apprenticeship scheme, as many people on the line seem to be doing at the moment, it's a great idea to get into Apprenticemakers, to see what other businesses are in there that you have something in common with, whether it's region, sector, or a similar kind of job role that you do in the business, and connect with them and say, can I understand from you how your apprenticeship scheme has worked? Lots of people have signed up to that who are experienced at delivering apprenticeships in their own business, and they've done that because they want to champion apprenticeships and they want to share their experience of apprenticeships. So don't be shy, really go in there, connect with folk and ask questions in the forum and draw on that amazing network of knowledge and experience from people that have already been there. So this gives you a quick look at what it looks like once you're in Apprenticemakers. So this bit here where I'm sort of circling around with my cursor, there's a map, and that has a red dot for every Apprenticemaker that's signed up. I think this was taken a few months ago, but we've got around 700 businesses in the network at the moment who are there to either learn from other businesses or to share their experience. We also have a forum here where you can, the profiles of the people that are signed up pop up, and you can go on and you can filter down depending on sector and whether or not they've taken on apprentice or would like to take on an apprentice. We also have groups in Apprenticemakers as well. So once you're in the community, up here, you can search on particular groups, and you can join a group for your region or a group for your sector. And now we're working more closely with growth hubs and LEPs and councils to see whether or not they can help facilitate regional groups, for instance. So get involved in those and connect with other people that have taken on apprenticeships. There's also tons of resources available on Apprenticemakers. So there's a small business guide to apprenticeships, and I'll be providing a link to that at the end. There's also tons of case studies, tons of blogs and webinars, of course. We also have a video playlist which is curated from YouTube, and so we draw in videos which we think are going to be of particular interest to small businesses interested in apprenticeships. We've also recently developed an HR guide for businesses that are employing young people. We've developed that in collaboration with the CIPD. So that's also a really useful source of information for people that are bringing young people into their business for the first time. Coming up, we've got some real-life champion training. So at the moment, if people have gone on and they've gone through the apprenticeships process and they would like to share their experience, we have some very light training on Apprenticemakers called Apprenticemakers Plus, which helps people develop mentoring skills so that they can support other businesses. What we're doing is we're bringing that to life soon, and we're going to be starting to deliver that to groups of champions in regions to see whether that makes an impact on the take-up of apprenticeships in that region. So if that's something you're interested in or something you're interested in hosting or facilitating, then let us know. We're also going to start bringing training providers into Apprenticemakers a bit more, rather than getting them involved in the actual community, because it's all about peer-to-peer in the community. We're going to find ways to draw on that extensive knowledge that tons of training providers have and enable businesses to connect with training providers and ask them questions as well. We're also starting work on an Apprenticemakers live event, a real event, which we're looking to align with the skills show, which is in November at the NEC. And so we'll be letting people know about that shortly. Okay, so if you're interested in this area, then join Apprenticemakers and connect with businesses and connect with those that you might be able to help or businesses that might be able to help you. Sign up for the webinars, like you have today, or get involved in a future one. We're always interested to hear from speakers that might be interested in future sessions, so let us know. Join a group for your sector or region, or even host a group, and look out for the Apprenticemakers newsletter. I've rather just crudely done a screenshot of the newsletter that went out yesterday, which you'll see there. And we send these out once a month, and so we're interested in apprenticeships news for small businesses that can go on into this, but also it's a way for people to keep in touch and find out what we're doing. Okay, so that's just the overview on Apprenticemakers. So I'd love to pass over now to Jill. Jill, are you there?
I'm here, Sophie.
Yes, you're still there. Great. So I wonder if you could just give us an overview of JWP Careers and what the business does.
Yep, certainly. Hi, everybody. So we're a 7-partner firm of accountants based in York and Selby, employing approximately 80 staff at present. We cover all aspects of accountancy, so from year-end accounts to audit, tax, personal tax, business tax, corporate finance, payroll, anything you could think of that's sort of accountancy related, we can pretty much offer it.
Great, great. And your background is as an apprentice as well. Can you tell us a bit about your career from apprentice to partner? How did that come about?
Sure, yeah. So when I was doing my A-levels, I knew for certain that I didn't want to go to university, but wasn't sure which route I wanted to take. So talking with careers officers, friends, I kind of came across the idea that I wanted to learn while I was earning in the workplace, rather than in formal university sort of type training. So I looked at sort of management programs, things like that, and it was actually a friend of mine who put me into the sort of arena of looking at apprentices and potentially accountancy and the AAT and where that could take me. So looked into that further, thought sounds like that's the type of thing that I'm looking for. Sent out CVs to local businesses, was offered interviews, and obviously accepted a role with a firm in York. They put me through my training as an apprentice with the AAT, so I went through all 4 levels of the AAT at the time, qualified as an AAT apprentice, then went on to study for my further exams, accountancy exams, my ACCA, at the same time as doing a degree program with them as well. Qualified as a certified accountant in 2005. Then moved firms at the start of 2007 to my current firm, where I was working as a manager and helping develop the teams. Was appointed as an associate in around 2010, and then I was appointed as a partner last year, and that's where I am now. So yeah.
fantastic, and it's a real inspiration to apprentices that are just starting out. So roughly how long did it take from apprentice to partner, would you say?
Probably, what have I been looking at? I started in 17 years ago.
Wow, okay, so it's going to be pretty similar for graduates that are making a similar route, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
So that's really great news for people that are choosing the apprenticeship routes instead of the university route these days. That career-wise,
yeah, definitely.
It's going to be a similar kind of journey, really.
Yeah,
so that's fantastic.
Yeah, and I'd hate for anybody to think that not doing the uni route was holding them back in any way. That's certainly not the case.
Yeah, well, you're definitely testament to that. So that's really great. So when did the business first engage in apprenticeships itself?
So I personally took on my first apprentice in around about 2012. I believe we'd had a couple over the years before that, but I've sort of developed into the training partner role as well. So I've been involved with recruiting and training up the apprentices as well. So yeah, I took the first one on in 2012. I've taken a couple more on since then, and I'm actually just actively recruiting for a further 3 at present.
Right, okay. And how does the rest of the firm feel about the apprenticeships route? Have they been really positive about it?
Oh, definitely, yeah. It's in my personal opinion, there aren't any downsides to it. We've, touch wood, never had any bad candidates, and it seems to work for us.
Great. And so the benefits, just can you summarise those for us? How have they seen them manifest in the business?
For us personally, the apprentices that we've been involved with and the ones that I'm currently have been in the process of interviewing have all been extremely eager and keen to come on board and to be able to develop a training programme whilst learning sort of hands-on day-to-day work as well. And I've always found that it's a good route to take because you're sort of able to train them up from scratch into, we're able to, train them up with our methodology and how we like to have things done. And touch wood, I've always found as well that by investing the time in them throughout their apprenticeship, they do seem to sort of be more loyal in wanting to stay with the firm as well and further their studies.
I think that's actually been proved by research that businesses have, they did some research on a cross-section of businesses and found that those that did apprenticeships were more likely to stay with the business. So that sounds quite typical of what's actually happening out there as well.
Certainly is from our point of view, yeah.
Yeah, it seems to be the case. I think if people have invested time in you and you feel you've been there from a relatively younger age, then I think you feel more committed to staying with the business.
Definitely.
Okay, and how do you select your apprentices?
So it's kind of a bit of a mix mash really. Some of our previous ones have been literally just they've sort of sent a CV in and I've come across them that way. More recently, I've actually put an advert through our local college, sort of for them targeting recent A-level finishers, which is quite useful because then the college sort of deal with the initial legwork of collating the applicants and doing an initial sort of sieve through as well. I've also recently attended an apprentice recruitment event at the local council, and that was a fantastic turnout at that. And we also have an internal scheme whereby if a current member of staff is aware of a friend who's interested or looking, then we offer a small incentive for them to put them forward. Yeah.
I think there's also a service from the National Apprenticeship Service where if you're working with a training provider, they put your vacancies on apprenticeship vacancies as well for free, don't they?
Yeah, and I think that's what York College did as well. Our vacancy went up on it's a gov.uk website, isn't it, for apprentices? It was on there.
Yeah. I know that that some businesses have contacted us saying they can't find candidates, and I think in some cases that can be an issue, but it's good to hear that there are other things they can do to try and generate interest in their vacancies. And although there is support from training providers, if they are struggling to recruit, there are other things they can do to actually get the word out there. I like the idea of the staff incentive scheme.
Yeah,
and
it
even
works
if
well.
people are in a small business, so they can let their network know they're looking, that often people have sons and daughters that are looking for apprenticeship roles. So it's worth spreading the word that way, isn't it?
Definitely.
Great. I gave people a little glimpse before of your apprentices, and then I quickly went on to this slide. But is that right? Can you let us know who's in this picture?
Yeah, 3 of my current existing apprentices, so they're at varying levels of their AAT at the minute.
Right, okay. And they look like a keen bunch, so that's good.
Yep.
Do you give them a trial period once they're in the business?
Yes. What I tend to do is say that they have no formal studies in the first year. It kind of works as a benefit for both them and us, lets them get their feet under the table, get a feel for the job, see if it is actually something that they're wanting to pursue before we enroll them at college and things, because with the best will in the world, until you actually come into any given environment, you don't know whether you are going to like it, or it could be completely not what you were expecting. And likewise, it gives us the opportunity to see whether they've got what it takes, and or show a flair for it.
Yeah. And the structure in the first few weeks and months in the business, how does that work?
So, as I said, as we don't put them into formal training straight away, but what we do is develop an internal training program for them. So they'll be assigned to a manager/mentor who will be responsible for their internal hands-on day-to-day training. But then we'll also, through one of our external training providers, sign them up for any sort of short one-day courses that we feel might be of benefit to them, sort of introductions to things.
Great, okay. And so I just wonder if anyone's got any questions from the floor. Just addressing the question that came through from the polls, how do you find management time? Do you feel like it takes a lot of management time to employ apprentices as opposed to any other new staff?
Me personally, no, I don't see a vast difference between the 2 different routes. Say if you enlist the help of a local training provider or college, they do some of the initial legwork for you anyway, and they, I think, well, certainly through my experience, they won't put anybody forward unless they've actually physically spoken to them as well, and sort of assessed their skills against a matrix that we've provided them.
And does the business also take on graduates? And it might be too soon to tell because your first apprentice was brought into the business in 2012. But are you seeing a big difference between graduates and apprenticeships in the way they're performing in the business and the roles they're taking on?
We do take on graduates, and I often feel that with the graduates, with the age that they're coming out of uni, they're a bit more keen to get through their sort of professional qualifications almost sort of as quickly as they can, whereas I find with the apprentices, with them being a bit younger, it's not seen as a mad rush for them, and they are more willing to take it at a sort of a more manageable pace.
Yeah. And is that an issue for the business, or is that quite healthy for the business?
It's very healthy for the business. Being an apprentice myself, I'd definitely favour that route, I think.
Right. That's good to know. Great. So we will come back to you as we go through the webinar, because I think there's going to be other questions that pop up.
Okay.
But if Dan's still on the line, I think we'll move over to Dan to ask about his experience of working with some of the young people that we're talking about here. Hi, Dan.
Hi there.
Hello. Can you tell us a bit about your role and how you
Sure.
work with young people? I might have cut you off before, but if you could give us a bit of detail into that, that'd be useful.
Yeah, sure, no problem at all. So the team that I work in is the first point of contact for prospective students that are interested in AAT, accountancy. It's quite a broad range of people that we engage with, really. Our role really is to support people in that kind of decision-making process about whether or not AAT is the correct path for them, and we'll provide information to the relevant information and support as part of that process. So it's not a kind of hard sell that we do at all with in terms of studying AAT. However, we are there to hopefully facilitate people actually starting or studying AAT, and within that remit does fall prospective apprentices. So we do pick up a lot of inquiries from people that are specifically interested in apprenticeships. So yeah, that's kind of what the remit of our team is.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how committed have you found the young people that you employ? How are they coming out of? I guess you're meeting them at post A-level stage. Is that when they're normally starting to get interested in AAT?
Well, actually, that's an interesting question, because I think traditionally we have found the inquiries would come from that either that school leaver age group or post A-level. However, the landscape has seemed to have changed a little bit, and we have found in the last few years there's been more interest from that kind of 18 to 24 age group for sure. Right. So. But it is a real mixed bag, actually. So traditionally we found there has been a swing towards more kind of school leaver age group, 16 to 18, but over recent years it has definitely the 18 to 24 age group in terms of inquiries has definitely increased, yeah.
Right. I guess people exploring it as an alternative to university, maybe.
Yeah, sure. I think that's a big part of it, yeah, absolutely. And I think we have found that we picked up from our prospective students that we speak with that they certainly have become more popular over recent years as an alternative to university. Mm-hmm. In terms of why that is, what they're favourable towards is, of course, having less debt to pay off. But I think, as well as that, one of the big draws is actual the work-based experience that they gain as part of doing the apprenticeship. And the good thing is the AAT qualification is very much skills-based, so it does sit very well alongside or as part of an apprenticeship scheme. So I think that tends to be the two of the big motivations: the not having the student loans to pay off and the work-based experience. Yeah, we picked up.
Yeah. What kind of roles are they looking for when they're going into smaller businesses?
Yeah, in terms of types of roles, so I did like to kind of put this question out to the team a few days ago to see if there seemed to be any trends relating to particular roles or areas of work. And what the student recruitment team have said is it's a real mixture: accounts assistant type roles, junior auditing and taxation roles as well seem to be the main, the most popular types of roles that apprentices are looking to get into. Okay, and do they come to you knowing what they want to do, or do they come with a kind of vague idea and you help direct them? It can be quite a vague idea, to be honest with you. Yeah, I think what luckily we've got a lot better at doing within the team, or generally within AAT, is understanding the market a bit better, and therefore knowing the right questions to ask in terms of that support that we're offering. But in terms of how the mindset of the prospective students and how they inquire with us, yeah, it can be a little bit vague, actually, to be honest. So, but I think we have got better in terms of asking the right questions and directing them accordingly. But yeah, it's a real mixed bag, yeah. Right, okay. And how kind of driven have you found them? Have you found them committed to the idea? Because, lots of young people get a tough press at the moment.
how have you found them when you're starting to speak to them? Do they feel like they're pretty ambitious?
Again, a mixed bag, really. Certainly, some of the events that I've attended, so as well as the office-based activities, we attend events and engage directly with prospective students, and it has been it's been really kind of interesting to see actually how motivated and focused some of the people that you speak with are actually, even at that kind of school leaver age group of 16 to 18. So I think that's quite reassuring. So yeah, there is definitely a real appetite out there, and I think for the reasons that we just were talking about a moment ago, it is becoming a more appealing proposition to younger people, and even people that 18 to 24 age group as well. And there does seem to be a real kind of appetite there. I think that's what we pick up as well. But inevitably, of course, we do also speak with people that perhaps are slightly disillusioned or unsure about what they're doing, and that type of person does require obviously a different type of approach and level of support and advice. But
back to you, Jill. How committed have you found the young people that you're meeting and interviewing and taking on these days? Have you found them to be keen to get going?
Yeah, definitely. Going back to a comment that you said, Sophie, about sort of young people at the minute getting a bit of a bad press, certainly I found that the ones that have come through to us going down the apprentice route are very keen to show you what they can do, and are grateful for the opportunity. And certainly I find it's reassured me over the state of today's youth, if you want.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, great. That's a similar message we're getting from lots of businesses that we're interviewing all the time, is that they're really surprised by how committed the apprentices are that they're bringing into the business and how driven they are. And, it seems to, in some ways, contradict some of the messages you get from the media about how, young people are approaching the world of work today. So it's good to have, tons of anecdotal evidence that to the contrary, so that's good. So Dan, if a business is approached by a young person that's interested in an apprenticeship like this, but they're not quite sure which area they should be going into, can a business put them in contact with you to have a chat first, or your team to have a chat and work out what they are most interested in?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're more than willing to speak with apprentices about that. We do try and work closely with the businesses, so we have an employer accreditation scheme. So we've got a team here who specifically concentrates on that relationship. So there's a sort of dialogue that occurs there anyway. So there's a kind of a good support mechanism anyway. So we would hope through that the employer would be well placed to be able to advise a prospective student or apprentice if they were to go directly to them. Also, colleges that often actually take care of the study aspect of the apprenticeship may well have an apprenticeship coordinator or otherwise who will have contacts with local businesses and will specialise in that area and will be able to act as a facilitator. But we do like to obviously encourage people as well, prospective students, to speak directly to us. And we're more than willing to speak with them. But we do have those good relationships, luckily, with the employers and colleges, which do seem to kind of be there to offer good advice independently as well.
But I guess if a business has got someone in their business that's thinking of doing an apprenticeship, they should say, take a look at the resources, and you run webinars as well for budding apprentices, is that right?
That's correct, yeah, webinars for prospective students. One thing that we've just managed to integrate onto our website as well is Get My First Job, a stream of apprenticeship vacancies which is available through our website. So that's a really good resource as well that people can go. Also, one of the things that we do, which has worked really well, is we've got a Twitter feed which is just specifically for prospective students. one of the things we do through there is engage with budding apprentices, and we'll offer them advice, and we've also we work with employers to put out job opportunities as well. So that's a channel that we utilise as well in order to engage with apprentices. Yeah.
Great, that's really useful. Thank you. Okay, thanks, Dan. I think we'll move over to Andy now. Before I do, so here's some of the students that have gone through AAT in one form or another. Moving over to Andy. Andy, can you tell us a bit about how apprenticeships work? What are the age groups roughly, the levels, time at college, time at the employers? How does it all work for a business that's approaching it for the first time?
No problem at all. And as an ex-apprentice, not an AAT apprentice, I must say, but as an ex-apprentice, I've gone through this process and sort of lived and breathed it as Jill has as well. So perhaps just to set a little bit of context with about AAT and who we are. We're the awarding body, a membership body, a professional body, a registered charity that has been around 35 years. Last year, about 8,000 AAT accountancy apprentices. We awarded about 8,000 apprenticeship certificates last year, which makes up about a third of our overall those students that went through our qualification. So looking back, about a third, about 8,000 of our students last year were apprentices. And AAT, the Association of Accounting Technicians, we award about 90% of all vocational accountancy qualifications. Again, just to set a bit of context there. We've got over 500 training providers, most of which are in the UK, but we've got international activity as well. So when we're talking about training providers, and over these next few minutes, as we refer to training providers, we might be talking about a local or national private training provider, which could be a chamber of commerce or a private provider, perhaps that you've worked with already as an employer, or of course it could be your local college as well. And again, many of our training providers that we work with, they offer the accountancy apprenticeship. So perhaps just to set a bit of context there, but yes, just to answer your question around how does the apprenticeship work, the accountancy apprenticeship work. So the apprenticeships, again, just try and dispel a few myths here. They can be delivered for your existing staff. Again, a training provider will work with you as an employer, as a business, to see if your existing staff are eligible for an apprenticeship and for the apprenticeship funding that is attached to them. Or perhaps as Jill described, you look at recruiting an apprentice in partnership with one of the training providers that I mentioned, either a local or national training provider or your local college. At the moment, it's the training provider that draws down the funding to deliver the apprenticeship, and priority is given, government initiative obviously, so priority is given to those who are 16 to 18, but there are, as both the speakers have mentioned already, apprenticeships available for the 19 to 23 age group and those at 24 plus as well. So there are 3 levels to apprenticeships, and that's no different to the accountancy apprenticeship where AAT is embedded as part of that apprenticeship. So level 2, there's the first bit of jargon, apologies. So an intermediate apprenticeship, which is sort of equivalent to good GCSE results. As part of an accountancy apprenticeship at that level, at level 2, they'll study the AAT certificate in accounting, and as an apprenticeship, as an apprentice, that will last around a year. With regards day release, it does, or it can vary from training provider to training provider, But generally at level 2, the apprentice would work with you for 4.5 days, and then they do that other half day or day as day release at a college or training provider. Dan mentioned some of the typical roles at level 2, so things like an accounts assistant, a bookkeeper, purchase or sales ledger clerk, or a trainee accounts technician, because ultimately when they achieve their level 4, that is what they become, a fully qualified accounting technician. So moving on to level 3, the advanced apprenticeship, and again as part of that year that it will take them to complete their level 3 apprenticeship, the qualification, if you like, that they'll gain is our AAT diploma in accounting. And again, general rule of thumb is that apprenticeship will take about 12 months, just over, in most cases. So again, you as an employer, you'd have that apprentice working in your business for 4 days, and then there'd be 1 day they'd be at their local college or local training provider. And again, you can see some typical roles. We've just tried to demonstrate some typical roles that we know some of our apprentices that are out there at the moment. So audit trainees, credit controllers, payroll supervisors, tax accountants, those sorts of roles, you might consider within your business. You might have someone doing that role already in your business that could be eligible for some training if they're not working towards that AAT qualification. Or, again, you might have a vacancy or perhaps a skills gap in one or more of those areas. So just try to demonstrate some job roles there. And moving on to level 4, the higher apprenticeship. Again, that takes just that little bit longer, around 18 to 24 months. And again, there's a diploma in accounting, AAT level 4 diploma in accounting that's part of that apprenticeship, and a business skills qualification that brings into the apprenticeship things like presentation skills, teamwork and communication, things like that, because of course at level 4 you as a business can expect more from that apprentice, so they're really contributing to the business, not not just sort of as an accounts assistant, but they'll be presenting facts and figures and different scenarios back to the business. So again, part of that apprenticeship is to help them build those more generic and general sort of business skills that you'd expect from them as a business.
Okay, great. So if typically if someone's bringing someone into the business and they're in the 16 to 18 bracket, they're more likely to start at level 2. But if they've come in later, post A-levels, might they start at level 3, or would they all start at level 2?
They may start at level 3. It's what generally happens is I would suggest that most of our apprentices start at level 2. But what will happen is, of course, it's everybody's responsibility, the employer, the training provider, and ourselves, to try and encourage, to make sure that, the apprentice, for everybody's sake, the apprentice is on the most appropriate program. I suppose the thought there is getting the right people onto the right level, and that will help, keep them motivated. It'll increase the chances of them, achieving their qualification rather than dropping out if it's too hard or too easy. So a lot of work is done at the front end, of the whole process. More often than not, between the company, with the business, with the employer, in partnership with one or more training provider. Normally, by that point, an employer will have chosen a training provider. And what that training provider will do, someone will go into the business, go into the employer, and really understand what it is, what role, if you like, the employer is trying to fill, what that vacancy looks like, and what that expectation is from an apprentice. There are also skills tests and skill scans, that a possible apprentice, could be subject to, again, lots of providers do that, not only in our sector, but across the whole sector. And again, just looking at sort of increasing the chances on making sure they start at the right level. But yeah, of course, if they've got lots of work experience and maybe some other qualifications, again, it's not beyond the realms of possibility that they'd start at level 3. But I'd suggest that most would start at level 2.
But
it's getting it right for the employer, and it's getting it right for the apprentice as well.
Yeah, sure. Just out of interest, Jill, what level do your apprentices start at?
Generally, as Andy said, they start at level 2. However, I have just got one starting at level 3, but that's because he is actually a graduate who has gone down the route of a career change, and so actually wanted to do his AAT first before starting his professional qualifications. So because of his past qualifications, he is actually able to start at level 3, but generally it's level 2.
Right. Okay, so moving on, so funding support, Andy, can you describe to us how that works?
Yeah, again, at the moment is the training provider that has the government funding, so it should be no or low cost to the employer themselves with regards the training that that one or more apprentice would receive. So the sort of skills element, the apprenticeship side is covered. Not the what we've tried to point out here is that it's the employer that pays the wages, and the government at the moment via a training provider is paying for the training, and that's through the skills funding agency. So again, from an employer's point of view, feel free to ask again one or more provider, challenge them around what funding is available, and don't be afraid to use acronyms like the SFA, or they might talk to you in acronyms around the SFA, and what they mean is the Skills Funding Agency. And like I say, that funding that the training provider draws down from the government via Skills Funding Agency pays for the apprenticeship training.
As far as I understand it, the training is normally completely free for 16 to 18-year-olds. It's funded at something like 50% for 18 to 24-year-olds. Oh, I need to find out the exact one. I'll send a link round to people.
Yeah, 19 to 23 and then 24 plus.
24 plus is funded by the individual or the business. However, lots of training providers, because of economies of scale at the moment, can offer more funded places for people that don't necessarily fall into those brackets. And for smaller employers as well, they should be eligible for the age grant, which will pay them $1,500, which is they get roughly 13 weeks after the apprentice has started. So that funding's in place as well, I think.
Yeah, and it's worth talking to, from a business and from a company employer's perspective, it's definitely worth talking to more than one training provider, and looking at exactly what funding is available and for how long. So, hopefully once, if the webinar today gives you some food for thought about, who you might want to talk to, again, challenge them with these sorts of questions, because it can vary from training provider to training provider.
Yeah, and just on that, we have a list of questions to ask training providers in our small business guide, and the link is going to be available at the end. So that's a good way to really kind of drill down, make sure you're getting the service you want from a training provider.
Okay, and then what we've just tried to do here is there is a specific apprenticeship minimum wage. I've put the 1st of October in there because it is set to go up. I'm always careful of averages, but again, some research that was done recently shows, because of course it's you as an employer that pays the wages, so there's a minimum wage there, the £3.30 from the 1st of October. Average is between about 170 and 200 pounds for apprentices, a weekly wage. But again, that's across all levels and across all sectors. So, you know, perhaps not necessarily take it with a pinch of salt, but you know, that goes from level 2 up to level 4 and across all the sectors. And again, what we've tried to do here, so with the earning expectations across AATs level 2, AATs level 3, and AATs level 4, these salary expectations are actual figures. Each year, AAT does a salary survey of our members, so those that AAT have got a relationship with from a membership point of view. And what this shows is once one of our students has achieved their level 2, that's the salary range that that they're expecting to earn, between just over 8,000 up to 24,000. And then when they're fully qualified and got up to level 4 and achieved their level 4, it's anything from about 12.5 up to about 26,000 pounds. Right. And just by word of progression, what we do tend to find is lots of our students, once they've achieved their level 4 and become a member of AAT, a full member of AAT, lots of our students stay there, and that's fine, and they make, you know, they've got good roles, good careers, and stay there. But as Jill described earlier, it does lead on to other qualifications. Jill took the ACCA route, the SEMA, and obviously others that you may be aware of. So those that are looking to become a chartered or management account, our level 4 qualification is a great route into those that want to progress onto other and more other professional qualifications as well.
Right, I see. Okay. So in terms of other support available, I didn't know about this one, the additional learning social needs funding.
Yeah, again, that's something that came up from one of our training providers, and again, you know, that can vary from training provider to training provider. So if additional needs are identified, it can be for a whole host of things. Again, there is other support available that again the training provider would be able to draw down. And that next point there, again, trying to avoid acronyms, the apprenticeship training agencies. Again, we've got apprenticeship training agencies all over the country, which a lot of small and medium-sized enterprises and micro, sort of smaller organisations are using. So one of the barriers, having worked with lots of SMEs and small organisations across the country, one of the barriers to, one of the common barriers for an employer taking on an apprentice is, you know, that risk around, you know, will they stay with me, you know, those types of things. So what the apprenticeship training agency is able to do is to find a candidate, they take them on, and then it's that apprenticeship training agency that places that apprentice, that individual, into your business. So it's a bit more of a, how can I put it, a bit more of a lower risk option, you know, particularly for those employers that are taking on an apprentice for the first time. So again, if there's interest there, again, you know, we can perhaps share some links around how apprenticeship training agencies work.
Yeah. Well, we've got a really great blog on our website about how ATAs work, and again, I'll share that link at the end. So I think it is a really interesting route for small businesses that might be embarking on it for the first time and don't feel ready to take the leap to fully employ an apprentice, but would like to try it out. Often people who start with ATAs will then go on and run the scheme themselves in future. So it can be a useful route to know about. Okay, so sourcing a training provider, how should they go about this?
again, yeah, just trying to dispel some myths really around, you know, it's perhaps not as hard as lots of businesses out there. I think on our AAT website, we've got a find a training provider function. Really, it's set up for, I suppose, you know, individuals looking to do an apprenticeship. But again, via our website, as I say, on this find a training provider function, you can click on apprenticeships, put your postcode in and a radius, you know, a search radius, and a list will appear of all those training providers that are approved by AAT to deliver apprenticeships will appear on there. So again, that will be a mix of probably your local college or colleges, local or regional training providers, and national training providers. So again, you know, you might be aware of some of the, or you may already have a relationship with the local college, or, you know, again, there are some household names that and high street names that we work with who deliver apprenticeships for us. So that's one route. One of the other things that, you know, you can contact a college directly. Don't necessarily have to go through our website. Most colleges, most training providers have got perhaps an apprenticeship officer or apprenticeship manager or an employer engagement officer or manager, and again, they'll be able to talk to you and ask the question. You know, you can ask the question around, you know, do you deliver accountancy apprenticeships, and begin to ask some of the questions that we've touched on today. Of course, quality is important. You know, from your perspective, you want to know that you know, you're working with a good and reputable training provider. Again, whether it's a college or private training provider, and of course, any provider that's receiving government funding is subject to Ofsted. So again, you can look for yourself and look for on the Ofsted website to see how they've been graded at their last inspection. There's just a quick overview there. It's a question you can ask, you know, if you don't have time to look on the website. But the things you're looking for, I would suggest are grade 1 and grade 2 training providers that have been judged to be outstanding or good. Those that are at grade 3 or grade 4, those are those that require improvement, or, you know, in Ofsted's eyes, have been deemed inadequate. So again, you know, you want good quality. You want some, you know, someone who's going to obviously support you, and the type of things you can expect. You know, good quality training delivery, you know, on that day release. The technical side of the training, which is the AAT qualification. What training providers will also help you do is work in partnership, like I mentioned before, about identifying roles, looking at skills gaps within your business to see if you know, an apprentice is a suitable route for you to go down. So looking at those roles. There are places where they'll help you advertise that vacancy. You know, you could use as a business, you could use the local press, but again, we've heard already about the National Apprenticeship website. Dan mentioned the Get My First Job website. You know, there's social media. So again, you know, there are different places we can advertise, or your advertise would be, your vacancy would be advertised. And things like shortlisting, again, a good training provider, in fact most training providers will sift that first response to an advert. So again, you're not swamped with dozens of letters, application forms, or CVs. So again, you can work in partnership with the training provider just to show exactly you know, what it is, what criteria you're looking for from your apprentice. And again, the training provider will support you as a business and will support the apprentice through their qualification as well. You know, again, you might have that apprentice with you as an apprentice for 1 up to kind of 3.5 years. Might take them on afterwards, but during the time as an apprentice, again, it's the training provider's role to support that apprentice as well. So it's not just down to you as an employer.
Great. Okay. Brilliant. Thank you, Andy. That's really, really useful. Fantastic overview. I would just emphasise there that the training provider relationship is totally key, and every business that we interview where they've had success with apprenticeships, that relationship between them and the training provider and understanding what they're trying to achieve has been absolutely critical. So I would certainly encourage you to do your homework and shop around and find the right training provider. Also, you can go into the Apprenticemakers community and talk to other businesses in a similar sector and say, who did you use? Were they good? Would you recommend them? How did it work for you? So I would totally recommend using that forum as a way to find out from other businesses what's worked for them and what hasn't. So I would suggest that. So here are 3 really useful links. I was hoping I was going to be able to drop them into the info box, but I don't seem to be able to do that. But I'll send these round afterwards, and in the email that delegates get afterwards. Also in that email will be a link to a feedback form. If you could let us know how you found today and what you would find useful in the future, that would be great. All of these resources have tons of useful stuff in terms of sourcing a training provider as well, and actually, like I said, asking the right questions so that you know what to do next. In terms of questions, we're actually very low on time. The webinar is due to finish, well, now-ish. I'm just going to ask one question before we head off, which is, would you say that the apprenticeships in accountancy would work as well for a small business that hasn't, that doesn't deliver accountancy services as for an accountancy business? Have you seen experience of that working?
Is that for me, Sophie, or is that?
Yeah, I think probably Andy.
Yeah, what we tend to find is we get a complete mix of all of those employers. So again, when Dan's team are talking to sort of potential apprentices, their perception of what accountancy is or means to them can be quite different. Some see it as you know, in their mind, or maybe careers advice they've had at school. Some see it as, you know, they will be in an accountancy firm, a small, medium, or large accountancy firm. Some have got a very different outlook of it and see it as, you know, they'll be working in the private sector, you know, maybe on the high street, maybe on an industrial estate somewhere, working in an accounts team, you know, within a manufacturing company or engineering or construction company. And others see it as, you know, their way into working in the public sector. And again, we've seen examples of people working, you know, apprentices working in the ambulance service, of course, for the NHS, police force, local councils. Again, you know, again, we get lots of our apprentices that are placed in there. And I think part of the point is there, you know, if you're giving, you know, whatever your business is, whatever your core business is, an accountancy apprentice will obviously be able to offer a lot. So whether you're in, like Jill is in a practice, you know, some of those apprentices, you know, if they haven't made it to partner perhaps with Jill in her company, you know, there's what we do tend to see is, you know, the apprentices, once they're qualified and got some experience under their belt, they may potentially sort of jump round, you know, all of those different sectors. So the skills they learn in practice are relevant to private sector, what they learn in private sector are relevant to public sector, and on it goes, you know, and we can't promise that, you know, our AAT students, you know, are never out of work, but what we do tend to find is that, you know, they do potentially jump round because, of course, each of those different routes or the skills that are gained at each of those different routes are relevant and useful, you know, to another sector, if you like. So, so what they learn in public sector, relevant to private sector, relevant to practice. So, you know, by giving an apprentice, you know, that first opportunity, perhaps that first rung on the career ladder, you know, you're setting them up for a career, hopefully, you know, or certainly a vocation for life. You know, that's what a lot of our students tend to consider consider it as. So yeah, we've
Great.
got examples across the board.
Okay, fantastic. Because we've gone over time, I think we'll stop there and we'll invite people to ask questions after the session via email. Like I said, if people can keep an eye out for the email that comes out after the session, it'll have some of these useful links and links to the feedback if they could complete that. And look out for our future webinars. It would be great to invite more people to get involved in future webinars as well. So that's something of interest, please get in touch. So Jill, Andy and Dan, thank you so much for your time, and thanks for giving up an hour of your day to help us spread the word about apprenticeships. And please, delegates on the line, send me any questions if you've got anything that you'd like to cover after the session. Okay, so I'll close now. Thanks everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Sophie.
Thanks, Sophie. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.